Luisa Oliveira, and some of you may remember that in 2016, we had a number of, where did Lisa go? Oh, we had a number of meetings with the Willow Ave residents. And at that time, we were talking about different strategies that the city was undertaking to prepare for EAB. And since that time, EAB has become a reality. So we wanted to kind of get people together again and talk a little bit about some of the changes that have happened since 2016. We were very fortunate to have hired a new city arborist named Vanessa Bukili, who has a PhD in ecology, and she has really been able to change and support the urban forestry program to a level that we're all very much happier with. And so I'm going to introduce her, and she's going to talk about a couple of things. A little bit about just an overview of urban forestry in Somerville since she has been here, and the ash trees, what emerald ash borer is, what the treatment plan and the removal plan is that the city is following. And then where we're replanting, what other cities are doing, and then she'll open it up to questions if you have specific questions about either your street or a particular tree, and how to stay informed. One of the things, in order to let her get through her presentation, is we have some scrap papers here that I'll hand out in a second, and some pens so that you can take notes while she's talking, and then we will stay as long as everybody's questions are answered. So I'm going to hand those out and hand the microphone to Vanessa.
Thanks, Louisa. Thank you all for coming. Glad that we are also videotaping this so that people can watch this from home later as well. So just a little bit about urban forestry. You guys are all strong advocates for the urban forest and know how important our trees are. So I won't go into too much detail, but I started working here in Halloween, October of 2016, so almost 2 years to the day. And since then, I've set this mission for the Urban Forestry Division to maintain, preserve, and expand a healthy and diverse urban forest to maximize environmental, economic, safety, and aesthetic benefits for the Somerville community today and in the future. So creating a vibrant urban forest takes a lot of different pieces. We want to make sure that we have trees that are getting bigger. We want a lot more trees, but also bigger trees, because tree benefits all the wildlife value that they provide, the carbon sequestration, the air quality benefits, all these benefits that trees provide expand exponentially as the trees get bigger. And so we definitely want to make sure we have more trees, but also that we take care of them so that they can reach maturity. So I'm trying to maximize benefits through planting, maintenance, and that should say planning, not planting again. So planting diverse trees across the city, using the best planting practices. I was talking to Lisa about earlier how some of the planting practices weren't always so great in the past, but now we're making sure that trees are planted well and the right species are planted in the right place. Then looking at tree maintenance, making sure they're protected during construction, they're pruned as they grow older. And also protected from pests and diseases. So that's what we're going to be focusing most of today on. But another important part of creating a vibrant urban forest is making sure that we keep our community safe. So trees that pose a risk to the public do not belong in the urban environment. We want to keep people safe. So if there's dead trees or trees that have limbs that pose a risk to the public, we want to make sure those are cleaned out of the way as soon as possible. So one of the cool things that I've been working on since I got here is updating our tree inventory. So we had a tree inventory in the city in 2009, but that was pretty out of date. So starting last year, we inventoried half of the city. About 6,000 different trees were inventoried. And then we had to take a pause and get more funding, but we just continued our inventory right now. They started on Monday. So this clump of trees here was done last year, and you can already see them starting to fill in the inventory for the rest of the city. So in 2009, we had about 12,000 publicly owned trees, so we'll see how many we have now. I've also been doing planting, a lot more planting than was done historically. Started with 70 trees in the spring of 2017 and have been increasing ever since. So this just shows a map of everywhere that I've planted since I started. It's almost 500 trees. This doesn't include, the total count includes Beacon Street, but it's not shown on the map. So last spring, 121 trees were planted on Beacon Street. And besides the citywide contractor that helps with this planting, we've also done some community events with the Mystic River Watershed Association. So we planted 50 trees in Ten Hills area and along Fells Way West last spring and the previous fall. We're doing more planting events this fall, so hopefully you guys can get involved in that. Some other cool stuff I'm doing and working towards is planning for the future of our urban forest. So I've devised a strategy to make an urban forest management plan, and we got DCR grant funding to help get that going. That'll be starting to get put together this after the planting season's over probably, so maybe December timeline, but we have a consultant in place to help strategize, look at what we have now and in terms of the urban forest and strategize how to move forward in the future. Also, we're starting up an urban forestry committee that will be 9 members, 2 city staff, including myself and the tree warden, Steve McGeckern, as well as 7 public members. So we just put out a call a month or 2 ago, received 30 applications, and we're reviewing those now. So if any of you applied, thank you very much, and we'll let you know soon what we're here for today, ash trees. We have, as Louisa pointed out before, we've had a few different ash tree meetings and outreach activities starting back in 2016 with a public tree hearing talking about the emerald ash borer and some ash tree removals, and a special meeting for Willow Avenue because it's sort of a hot spot for ash trees. Most of the street is lined with ash trees. Then when we found emerald ash borer this August, we put out a press release and another press release for this meeting today, and we do lots of outreach for the meeting. So hopefully that's one of those avenues is how you found out about it. We've also been continuously updating the website, a bunch in 2016 and a bunch recently, and we'll keep doing so. And we've also continued to monitor for emerald ash borer and treating trees. So lots of different ways to be communicating to the public. All right, so we have 999 ash trees on public land currently. They're made of 3 different species. Most of our trees are green ash, but we also have some white ash and a handful of European ash. Most of these ash trees are found along our streets, but about 100 of them are found in our parks. And of 999 ash trees, if we assume we still have about 12,000 public trees, like we had in the 2009 inventory, that's about 8% of our urban forest. And here's a map showing the distribution of all of these trees. The black dots are all the trees, so you can see they really are throughout the city, but there are some hot spots and really monoculture areas along Willow. You can see a bunch in Somerville Avenue. There's a number in the Winter Hill area, along Walnut, and some on McGrath area. So there are some places that will be more affected than others. And this is, back in the day, making a monoculture along a street makes a really beautiful tree-lined street, and it looks so even and nice, but having a diverse species composition is really important moving forward so that if there are pests that attack a species or a genus, that we have a diverse canopy and we're not going to be losing all of our trees in one area all at once. Okay, emerald ash borer. You guys have probably all heard about emerald ash borer, but just a quick review of what an emerald ash borer is. So it's an invasive insect. It's a beetle from Asia. They're these beautiful green metallic beetles. Lisa, I think you said you found one. Okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate that. So they are really beautiful. They're also really tiny. So here's a to size scale. You can actually fit about 7 of them on the head of a penny, so they're very small, hard to see in the field unless you're really lucky, unless you're really looking for them and also get lucky. What are they? They're a beetle. They attack all species of ash. They don't care what it is, they attack it. They were first found in the US in Michigan in 2002. Since then, they've been spreading and they've killed hundreds of millions of ash trees throughout the country. In Massachusetts particularly, they were found first in 2012 in Dalton. That doesn't mean they weren't here before that, but that's when they were first discovered. And then we discovered it in Somerville this year. Here's a map. It's a little hard to see probably with the red and green here, but all the red dots and the blue outline are showing the range of emerald ash borer currently throughout the United States. There's also one over here, so it's definitely spread. It started in Michigan and it's been spreading east and south, and now it's starting to spread west, it looks like too, but it really is everywhere. And in Massachusetts, this map shows the progression through different communities through time. So it was first found in 2012, and there were some target areas in the west as well. It jumped over. They found it in the Arnold Arboretum in Boston in 2014, I believe, or 15. It's hard to tell which color it is, somewhere around there, and up north. And then this year, there's been a lot of new communities that have found it. It could be spreading more quickly now since it established the population initially in Dalton, but it also could be that more communities are becoming aware that this pest is around and they're trapping, so it's hard to say exactly why there's more now, but anyways, it's definitely spreading, and it's here. So because this beetle is so small, it's hard to find it in the field, but there are some telltale signs of the beetle infestation. So this beetle burrows into the bark of an ash tree, and it makes these larval galleries in the cambium, in the living tissue of the trunk. And so it cuts off the supply of nutrients and water to the canopy. So that results in dieback from the top of the tree because water and nutrients aren't reaching the top. And as the tree is trying to survive, it'll spread out, send out new shoots near the base and at the very base of the trunk. Also, there's all these yummy larvae in the bark, and birds and other animals will strip off the bark trying to get that. So you can see blonding or wood chips on the trunk sometimes, and that can be a sign that the tree has emerald ash borer. There also, when the adults come out of the trunk, they make D-shaped exit holes, so they're very small. I have some cards that I can hand out so people can carry them around. They're really small holes. There are other borers that make circular holes, but the emerald ash borer ones are D-shaped, which is the shape of their head. So those are some characteristic signs. Okay, so now we know emerald ash borer, we know about our ash trees, and we can talk about our treatment plan. So we have 3 different things we're doing in Somerville to help prevent the spread and high population densities anyways of emerald ash borer. So we started back in 2016 with a preventative strategy. We hadn't found it yet, but we started looking for it and we started treating our trees. So our approach is to monitor. We use traps to detect the presence of emerald ash borer and to look at population density. So that's how I found it. We're treating all of our healthy trees, and then where we have dead or dying trees that aren't healthy enough to treat, we're going to be removing them. I'll talk more about all of these things. So for monitoring, you may have seen these in the trees around the city. There are these pretty big purple sticky traps. They have basically like glue on the outside and a pheromone packet on the inside hanging down, and it attracts the beetle to that zone, and then they get stuck to the end, and then we check those traps regularly and see if we got any. We get other insects too, but we're looking for the emerald ash borer. The purple triangles show the locations of all these purple sticky traps back in 2017. a lot of those locations were the same as our 2018 trappings. So actually the one that I found one emerald ash borer only, one insect throughout this season, and it was found at our trap at Dillboy, so way up here. So right on the edge. Doesn't mean we don't have it more places, but that's where we found it. So we're monitoring and we're also treating. So we're using triazine, which is an organic insecticide. It's systematically distributed throughout the trunk. It's injected through these cool capsules that stick into the base of the tree, and the tree sucks up the insecticide and it gets distributed throughout the canopy. This treatment is quite effective, but only lasts 2 years, so trees have to be retreated every 2 years. The way it works is once it's in the tissue of the ash tree, it inhibits larval development, so the larvae can't grow to the next stage and get bigger, and then they end up just dying. They can't molt and all that sort of stuff. And the adults that do come out of the tree have lower fecundity, so that means they lay less eggs, less viable eggs. So it doesn't get rid of all of them, but it gets rid of most of them. And because this is it's an organic insecticide, it's made out of the seeds of neem trees. It provides minimal risk to people, pets, insects and wildlife, soil, or aquatic ecosystems. So it's quite effective, and it doesn't disturb the rest of the environment. So here is our treatment strategy citywide. This is also on the website, so you can peer at it more closely on your own time. So it shows, again, all of the ash trees throughout the city. Greens are the ones that we're treating. Reds are the ones that need to be removed. There's also some yellows in there. There's about 100 trees that are sort of on the borderline of health that I need to check again to see if they look healthy enough to treat, at least for now, or if they've declined in health and they won't be able to take up that insecticide. Okay, so we started our treatments back in 2016. We treated 273 trees. Then, because we're going to have to be treating each tree every 2 years, in 2017, when I got here, I decided we should start treating half of our trees every year. And the treatment is half of the caliper inches, so how big they are. So the actual numbers might not match 100%, but approximately the same total number of trunk size per year. So 410 in 2017 and 412 in 2018, and that includes most, if not all, of the 2016 trees, plus the ones that hadn't been treated yet. And in 2018 also, DCR started treating their trees as well. So the one cool thing is we've asked our vendor when they're doing the treatments to put a little spray painted dot on the base of the tree on the sidewalk side, showing that that tree has been treated. So if you see a little dot on the sidewalk side of the tree that is green or blue, that was treated in 2016. If it is white, it was treated in 2017. And if it's red, it was treated in 2018. Some of the whites are fading off, so if you don't see a dot, it doesn't mean it necessarily wasn't treated, but if you do see it, that's what that means. Okay, so we're treating the healthy trees, but we do have to do some removals. Removals will be done for any dead trees, dying trees, or trees that are severely damaged. These trees are more vulnerable to emerald ash borer. They're emitting pheromones that are basically like the ash tree freaking out, and they're pheromones that the emerald ash borer can detect, and they know that the tree is weak, and they go there more purposefully. They also usually are declining in health anyways, so they end up dying more quickly. And when they don't have much canopy left, they can't effectively take the triazine insecticide up, as this insecticide has to be distributed throughout all of the tissues of the tree. So if the canopy isn't viable enough to be distributing the fluids, then it won't be, it can't protect itself. And you can see some examples of issues that we're looking for. So some mechanical damage, if the trunk has damage or decay, if a lot of the canopy is missing, so in this case, There was some really extreme utility pruning. Ash trees should never be planted under power lines, by the way. They get way too big, but this one was, and now there just isn't a lot of canopy to keep it going. This one you can see is also under the power line, but it also looks like there's a bunch of dead branches here, so it's already dying back, and it's just not gonna make it. So we started talking about these removals back in 2016. There was a public tree hearing, and there was a discussion then about the removal and replacement of about 124 trees. So this is sort of a recap of that meeting, a little bit of addition. You can see I was actually there. This was before I started, but I really wanted to know about the plan and make sure that it was a good plan, and I do think that it was. So removal so far, 24 trees have been removed so far, and 51 trees are marked for removal this November. The 24 trees that were removed were mostly the dead ones and the worst ones, and then there were some that were on Beacon Street and all that sort of stuff. The 51 that I've marked for now are the ones left that are in the worst condition. So the remaining dead ones are since 2016 newly dead ones, and trees that are the most dangerous. Those have all been marked and are definitely coming down this November. Then there's another 64 trees on our removal list that will be removed potentially this winter or next spring. Before I do any of those removals, I'm going to be verifying that they need to be removed in the field and make sure that they are really too unhealthy to treat. And so if any of them have somehow were misidentified or anything in the past, then they'll be switched to the treatment category. So here's the map of the 51 trees that have been marked for removal for this November. We tried to spread them out a bit. There are a few clusters, but these are really small dead trees, like on Somerville Ave. These are right off of McGrath on the median and near Dana. And they're all small and dead or nearly dead as well. And I know there's some Willow Ave people here, Lisa. So there's only 3 removals on Willow Ave right now. All right, replanting. So we're not just removing them and then, leaving the sites empty forever. We will be replanting when possible. So we have to look at a specific location to see if we can replant. There are various constraints. I'll show you a diagram in a second. And if some of the trees are really big and we're not able to get the stump out, then we can't replant in the same spot, but we will look into replanting nearby. I have already started some replanting to prepare for some of the removals. So about 13 trees 11 trees actually on Willow Ave and 2 right around the corner. So 13 in the area, a handful on Somerville Ave already, and I'll keep doing that, and a couple more here and there. And important things to think about when I'm looking at these sites for replanting is that I am planting species that are appropriate for the site, and also looking at maintaining diversity within an area so we don't get another monoculture and citywide. Just in case to preempt any questions, we do not plant ash trees anymore because this beetle is going to be around for a very long time. This is a diagram that Courtney made. Thanks, Courtney. Showing some of the things we think about when we are looking at planting a tree. So we don't plant within 20 feet of stop signs or intersections for safety reasons. We have to stay a certain distance from telephone poles and street lights, certain distance from walkways so that there's always entrance access to buildings. We can't plant really close to utilities underground. Especially with DigSafe, we can't, but if we get too close to these utilities, the utility companies can tear up the trees when they're doing any repairs, so that's never a good idea. We have to plant the trees far enough apart from each other that they can grow healthy. We also have to look at sidewalk issues, so we have to maintain accessibility, at least 3-foot wide paths with no obstructions. So on narrow sidewalks, there might be trees now, but if we remove them, we can't replant there. So there's a lot of different factors to keep in place, but whenever I can, I plant a tree. All right, so what are other communities doing? There's a range, and the range goes from treat the healthy ones and remove, just like we're doing. Cambridge is doing a very similar strategy. They started actually a couple years before we did, so I guess we're doing a similar strategy to them. But we're keeping the ash trees as healthy as we can and making sure that the trees that pose a risk to public safety are removed. Some communities are monitoring, but don't have really a plan of what to do. Arlington has that plan. They have volunteers looking out for emerald ash borer, but they don't have any information, at least on their website, about any actual treatment strategy. Other communities might not have all the resources to continuously treat the trees. There is some research that shows that it's actually more cost-effective to treat trees than remove them all, but they might not have that sort of long-term knowledge that they'll have that money available. So some communities are just preventatively removing all of their ash trees and replanting them, hopefully. And other communities aren't really doing anything. They haven't had time to think about it. They don't have the resources to deal with it. They're just waiting to figure out what to do. So there's some communities that just don't have the ability to do much at all. It's not a good strategy because this beetle is not going anywhere, but there are limitations always. There's also some projects going on at the state level. So DCR is involved with this, and the Forest Service. There is a quarantine, so no ash trees can be moved out of state. No firewood should be moved around. No ash tree wood products or nursery stock can be moved. And this is a quarantine actually across, it's more national. It's across all the states that have emerald ash borer. There's also some state level monitoring in forests that have a lot of ash trees. They have different types of traps, and they're looking at the population densities and distribution of the emerald ash borer. They're also working on some biocontrol mechanisms with a couple different parasitic wasps, and these wasps they attack the emerald ash borer, and so they can really help reduce population densities and population growth. They're wasps that are native to the emerald ash borer native range, so they are also exotic insects. Okay, so that covers most of what I wanted to talk about, but we do have a lot of information on our website about emerald ash borer and what we're doing here, as well as other things on the website, so definitely check it out. It's just somervillema.gov/urban forestry. We also just set up an email list, so if you want to sign up for email updates about this topic, then please do. You can do that through the website, or we'll send out a notice to the people who are here today. Okay, that's it. I'll take any questions, and here's my contact information as well if you want to contact me directly.
So we can tell from that website how many trees you're planning on removing on Willow this November specifically. It looked like it was 3.
It's 3 on Willow. I don't have the removal list on the website, but I can definitely put
Do you
that
have the
up.
addresses?
Not on me, but do you have my email?
I got the map. I mean,
I just don't
But we don't
remember.
have to do
you
it
don't
right
have it,
now.
right.
Is there a way for us to get that?
Definitely.
right. Okay.
And also the list of the trees you think are treatable on Willow,
Sure.
or the number at least.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and for the trees that are going to be removed, that until you remove them, you really don't know whether or not you'll be able to replace them because it depends on the stump.
Yeah.
Okay. And when, just real
sorry.
quick, honey bunny, when would they be replaced? Would it be like the following year, or the following spring, or?
The ones that are being removed now, some of them might get replanted in the spring, but others will have to wait till next fall. Yeah.
One thing that's been brought up in a lot of these meetings is that there are a lot of trees that have been removed over time by accident, like accidents happened or whatever. Is the city, I'm not sure that, people have asked this before, but I don't remember if it was clearly answered before, but regardless, I'm asking again. Is the city taking into account trees that, because we've lost a ton, like on Willow alone, we've lost a ton. The tree in front of our house, the tree in front of the school playground across the street. I'm just saying, you're taking account of the trees that you're about to remove and that you've removed for the emerald ash borer, but does the city have any idea of the trees that have been removed going a little further back for any old reason, and the city trying to replace those as well?
Good question. So since I started, I have been in charge of all removals. So all removals have to go through me, and we send out letters to abutters of the tree to let them know that trees are coming down. And I have very good documentation of which trees have come down since I started. Before I started, I do not have that information. So if a tree was removed and was asked to be replaced, I may or may not have that information. I was left a list, but I don't know how complete it was. So we do replace ones that I know have been removed, and I'm happy to take asks if you know of specific locations where trees have been removed and would like to let me know, then I'd be happy to add those to my planting list. Besides replacing trees that are removed, I do have also a list of requests for planting that may or may not have ever had a tree. So those requests can come in through 311, or people can email me directly, and I add that to my list, and I'm working through it. So I'm happy to do that.
And while we're talking about Willow, the email that was sent out on October 10, unfortunately I just got today, so I don't have I would have brought my old file. It said that you might need to revisit, now that the EAB is here, you might need to revisit the plan for Willow, because I got, as we know, this is the old plan. What does that mean exactly? Does that mean more trees are going to go down, or?
Just the timing of removal. So I know at the Willow meeting, there was a number of trees that were identified as maybe in the long run needing to come down, but the removal could be delayed. So now that we're here, just need to reassess the tree, see the condition of the health, see if we can continue to wait, or if we need to speed up the removal.
Like you even said that there's a possibility you may even change your mind, or change the earlier assessment and say, oh, this one could be treated after.
Yeah. Knowing how many trees have been removed for various reasons throughout the city, I do want to make sure that we keep as many trees for as long as we can here. So some of the trees may end up not taking well to the treatment, or they really aren't appropriately placed. And so in the long run, we're not probably going to be able to keep treating some trees for 10 or 20 years, but maybe we can get another couple years out of them. It'll sort of depend tree to tree on what the circumstances and the situation. Renee?
Following up on actually what you just said, how long on any given healthy tree are you expecting, if you're treating it consistently, how long are you extending its life? And then related to that, have you weighed the pros and cons of, if we're only extending it 3 or 4 years, or even 10, is it worth even trying and spending the money, and rather than just say it's foregone conclusion, it's not going to last much longer? And then related to that, do you know why the state is not doing treatments?
Okay, so first one was how long will we continue to treat? For now, indefinitely until we run out of money. we do have to keep assessing each time we treat a tree how well it's responding to the treatment, if it still looks healthy enough to treat. So as we go, further and further into the future, probably we'll have fewer and fewer healthy ash trees just by the nature of it. Some might come down for other reasons, all these reasons. If it's healthy, it's a very good question, and I don't have like a specific date, timeline, but I think it could last a very long time, just like potentially as long as it could have originally lasted. There is some research out there showing, looking at costs associated with treating versus removal, showing that over the long-term treatment is actually more cost-effective, taking into account all of the benefits that the trees provide. So I haven't seen any research that says like exactly how long a tree will live. There's already so many factors that have to come into play, so I don't have an answer about that, but I'd say definitely more than 3 or 4 years. I'd say on the order of decades, but I'm not 100%. I can get back to you on that. The state is doing some treatment, so they are treating in at least in Somerville on DCR property. I believe they've done some of the treatments in Cambridge. I don't know more than that what municipalities they've been treating at. They definitely have a lot of trees and very few resources statewide, so they're not going to be able to treat all of the trees. But I did mention the biocontrol efforts that they're doing, so hopefully there'll be some reduction of destruction from EAB, but they're sort of limited in what they can do. Yeah.
You said something about like it not being a good idea to plant an ash under power lines. We've got power lines and phone lines and cable lines and whatever everywhere. Does that mean that the kinds of trees you're planting now are sort of not intended to get that tall?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So
that's really super upsetting because
well, it depends on the location, right? So on the sides of the streets where there aren't lines, I can plant bigger trees. Under power lines, the trees just get hacked because the utility company has the right to prune limbs around their power lines. They have in the past. They're not supposed to do that anymore, but I understand where you're coming from. But anyways, it's just not prudent to put a tree that's going to get 50 feet tall under a power line. There's just that conflict there. So we plant shorter trees where there's power lines or cable lines under, over the tree well. But where I can, I plant large trees, definitely. So it's about half and half. Yep. They'll still get fairly large and spread out, so they'll provide shade more than, not as much as a giant canopy tree, but you'll still be getting some shade and other benefits. Yeah.
What's the best location to get the traps for the insect here?
So we were getting them from DCR. They had some available, but their pheromones are actually expired. So we then ordered our some new pheromones from Bioforest. They actually have a slide here. You can also, for private ash trees, for anyone here or at home, if you have a private ash tree, I recommend that you get it treated or assessed to see if it's healthy enough to treat. Bioforest has a list of service providers, and on this website too, they also distribute ash traps.
Can I ask you to say a little bit about what your assessment process is for determining the health of the tree, and then what people can do when you plant new trees?
Sure. So to assess a tree if it's healthy, I go on site. I look at the tree from a bunch of different angles outside. I look at the health of the canopy, how many leaves it has. If it has a lot of dead branches, I look at the structure of the branches. I look at the wood and see if it looks sound. Sometimes there's evidence of rot, or there might be a lot of mechanical damage. Like I had a picture, if it's getting banged by cars a lot, or car doors, or trucks driving down the street, then it's opening up the bark to infection potentially, and also just causing a lot of damage. So I look at a lot of different features. I also try to look at the roots as much as I can for stability. So lots of different ways to see how healthy a tree is. Sometimes a tree will look healthy, but it actually isn't. It could be rotten on the inside or have a lot of bad branch angles where it's and some rot in the branch crotch or something that makes it dangerous for the public. So it's not always obvious, but I do a careful inspection of the tree. When we do the replanting, we do have contractors watering the trees regularly. There'll be a green watering bag on the plant, so they're getting water, should be getting water once a week throughout the summer. But during really hot periods, it's really helpful if homeowners can, or residents can, fill the bag up one other day of the week, so that the trees get even more water. It's also good to keep the tree well free of weeds so that there's less competition with the tree for water. Make sure there's, it's a respectful area, so if there's trash around it or doggy doo-doo, you might want to clean that up. What else? Don't lock your bikes to it or anything that might damage the trunk of the tree. You don't want to cause any damage that can make it have a wound that could be really difficult to heal. Definitely don't prune the tree on your own unless you contact me. We can get someone to do any work to the tree that's, besides weeding and watering. We definitely want to make sure that there's not other activities going on with our trees. Also, a lot of people like to plant around the tree, little flowers and stuff, which is fine if they're small and annual plants, but if they get really big, like sunflowers, or if you want to put dirt around the top of the tree and put like a box around it, that actually kills the roots of the trees and is really harmful to the tree and reduces its longevity. So I've seen that a number of times around dead trees around the city. So don't do that. What else? We have a whole guide on our online with some more details on how you can help tap. So definitely check that out for more recommendations. Yeah.
I just have a couple more. You mentioned 121 trees were planted on Beacon Street?
Yep.
Wasn't there also a large number of trees that were cut down by a developer on Beacon Street?
There were, yeah.
Like without permission?
They were. There was a plan in place to remove those trees, but the developer didn't tell us when, or the contractor didn't tell us when they were doing it, so we weren't ready for them to do it yet, but it was in the original plans. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because that, I want to coattail
But
on.
how many was that?
I believe it was 30.
It was pretty
37.
awful because it happened right when we were dealing with this issue, because I remember looking at the headline being horrified, and that's one of my non-Willow questions, is the coattail on that. I mean, is that ever going to happen again in this city? Because that was horrifying to hear these. I just can't imagine waking up and finding all my trees gone on my street, and it was chilling. And what has the city done to make sure that never happens again? Because miscommunication, contractors are going to do whatever they damn well please, excuse me. They want to get rid of plants so they can build, and they don't really care about plants. And so I can see them just going in and doing it, but has the city learned from this? And if it has, what do they want to do or whatever?
There have definitely been meetings specific to Beacon Street, and they've talked about this particular issue. I wasn't in depth involved in this process, so I'm sure that at the past meetings they had a lot more information. Maybe they're online, you can find that. But I do know that Beacon Street is a state contract, it's a state job, so there was definitely many chains of it's like playing telephone amongst, tens of people. So I'm not sure exactly where the communication failed, but since then we've definitely talked to the contractor, talked to the state, and expressed our displeasure and tried to figure out how to not have that happen again on state jobs. For city jobs, that would never happen. Everyone has to come through me for tree work. So, Courtney.
What is the lifespan of a beetle? I mean, is this like they're having multiple babies in a year, or is it they live a year?
I think they can have multiple cycles in certain climates, but here they have one life cycle. So they, the adults emerge in the early summer, I believe. So that's when we had our traps out to see when we could catch them, anywhere between spring and early summer, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then the adults will lay the eggs, and the eggs will hatch and burrow into the bark of the tree. And I believe they develop in there over the year, but that's a good question. In the back first, sorry.
So you mentioned that the Somerville plan is similar to the Cambridge plan, which was adopted a couple years ago. Has there been any collaboration between the two? And has there been any collaboration with other cities nearby? I don't know if Medford is doing anything about it, but Medford.
I definitely talk regularly with the city arborist in Cambridge, so we compare notes about the strategy. I let him and all of our other neighbors know immediately when we found the beetle that we found it. I have, I told Medford and Arlington, and I talked to the arborist or tree warden in Arlington, but never got a chance to really talk in depth with the tree warden of Medford. I think she might be part-time, so it's probably a struggle to always get that, but we also have Greg from Tufts here, so.
I actually wanted to, that was my last remaining question. You mentioned Cambridge and Arlington were the only neighboring communities you mentioned. So you said some are doing nothing, some are removing all their trees. Can you name any of those?
I can't. So I met with a bunch of tree wardens during some tree warden training, and I know that a lot of communities throughout the state don't have a lot of resources, but I didn't ask them specifically about emerald ash borer. I know there was a meeting also for different Massachusetts communities about emerald ash borer a couple months ago that I unfortunately couldn't attend, but I looked over the notes, and that was what they were saying were some of the different strategies. So I don't have names to name, but I know that those are basically the options. So.
One reason I wonder is because the less our neighbors do, the more I worry that our treatment program is potentially going to be less effective. Like if they're doing absolutely nothing and letting their city get completely infested, that's going to make it harder for us to stay on top of it.
Could, but
I know there's not much we can do about
yeah.
it. But
Also, emerald ash borer is here probably until the end of time, until there's no more ash trees anymore. So sort of regardless of what other communities are doing, we're going to have to keep dealing with this. Would it be better if the communities, our neighboring communities, were doing more? Sure. But, it's going to be something we're going to have to deal with one way or the other.
one reason why it might be useful to know is, we can talk to our state representatives. We can talk. I mean, if there's any funds that can be used to help some communities that can't afford to do it themselves or anything like that, And actually what you just said about until there's no ashes left, so that's not actually the case in their native habitat, right? There must be ashes or they wouldn't have something to live on.
There are, but it's always different in a native area, right? So the beetle and the native ash trees there sort of grew up together. It's like a relationship where they grew. I don't know. They evolved together, and so the defenses are better than our native ash trees. And the beetles don't get as heavily infested in the ash trees as they do here. They have low population densities, and it doesn't seem to be a big deal.
Is it a difference in the species of ash?
It is, yeah.
Well, would there also be more natural predators for
Well,
the?
it sounds like
Yeah,
that.
that too. Yeah, it's a whole ecosystem. Exactly. Thank you. Good point.
Right. Does the Transients stay in the leaves, so once they fall to the ground, say it was treated that summer and then in fall and the leaves go to the ground, is there still Transient in the leaves?
I don't believe that it is, or if it is, it's not bioaccumulated. I can't remember. I definitely knew that at one point. But I have a brochure here that you can look through. There's definitely a lot of information online. I know it's not toxic to the wildlife, but I can't remember if it's found in the ash leaves or not once they fall. Probably other borers and insects inside the wood, but it's not bioaccumulated, it's not transferred, through, it must not be in the leaves because it's not toxic to the other wildlife, so I don't see how that's possible.
Are you worried about like bees?
Yeah, and just anything that comes in contact, like if those leaves fall in your garden and you leave them in.
It absolutely says in this brochure that it's not toxic to bees or birds or mammals. And it's an organic, it's just neem. It's neem oil is the active ingredient, which is 5% of the product. And it's used in Canada, and they have very strict pesticide regulations. So it's, the best possible product out there that's not dangerous to wildlife. Any other questions, comments?
Just real quickly, with the inventory that was done, that only was city trees, right, not private property?
Right.
Okay, and then my last question, and thank you for bearing with me on all my questions. The utility guys, so you said they're not supposed to do this anymore. Is there anyone who checks on their work? Because, I mean,
It's been horrendous.
I mean, it's the
I stay very busy. I go around and check.
to,
Are there any
the tree getting
penalties
damaged.
if they do what they're not supposed to do? No?
I'm sure there are, but I don't know what they are because I haven't had to deal with that yet. But I do know that in the past the tree warden actually kicked them out of town because they were doing too much damage. So there was a couple years where they didn't do any pruning at all because he said you can't do this unless you're going to do a better job. So since then they've been much better.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for putting this
You're very
presentation
welcome.
together, you too, Louisa. And anyone else?
Thanks for coming. No, sounds like it, no. That's my dad. Thanks so much for coming. I'll stick around if anyone has any other questions. I have cards here, so thank you.